And welcome into the Tuesday edition, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Joe Rexrode, good morning. How are you?
Doing all right. I came my normal way to work today.
That's good.
I left real early just to be safe, and it was fine, except for like about a half-mile stretch. It's like Battle and McFarland. Like we have like our back-ass roads are like Glennon picked me up one time, and he's like, dude, like are there chickens on my car right now? Like where's the goats? Like for about a half mile, there is like a forest in the road. Like you can like it just trees. Like for a half mile straight. Like if traffic's coming, I don't know what it's good at 4:30 in the morning. But my goodness, man.
Did you do some weaving?
Yeah, I mean, luckily there's no car coming the other way. I just went to the other lane, and I'm like, dude, like this is a long stretch of road where there's just like trees on the road.
Did you turn your high beams on?
I had my high beams on.
Did you turn them off in time when there were some other cars?
No one flashed me, so I guess that's good. But yeah, it's good. We got school back today, so hallelujah.
They're back. They're back in there today
After a month.
Mine's not. Sumner County's still out.
Dang, man.
Yeah.
Dang.
I mean, mine's a 2.5-year-old, so there's a limitation on what that means for me. But
right.
Sumner County's still out.
But still, notable. Yeah.
Very notable. Ian Safar, how we doing? What's going on?
Good morning. Doing just fine, thanks. Not a whole lot to report in my neck of the woods. Pretty uneventful, I should say. Back to school. All good. Roads are pretty solid. Still some trees down here and there, but for the most part, we're back to the grind.
There we go.
We got
back
power.
at it.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Hope you're staying safe and warm.
Yes.
What about 5 more days for a few people with power? Is that what we're looking at? 5-6 days?
Yeah. Willie D. He's without power. I was talking to him about it yesterday. He's like,
right?
yeah, my cat's just grinding through upstairs. Said he had basically a transformer explode on him behind his house. He's like, oh, okay.
Oh, geez. That's wow. That's aggressive, man.
So Willie D's he's been grinding it out the last week or so.
He's tough.
He is. We got a lot going on the program today. We had some actual breaking news on our program yesterday, Joe, which does not happen very often. But as we discussed to end the show, Barry Trotz stepping down as Predators general manager. We'll be joined by Alex Doherty from the Tennessean at 7:30. We'll get into that throughout the entire show, but we will get into that with Alex at 7:30. We'll have the Rob rant at 7:45. And we will get into, briefly later in the show, an actual hire that the Titans made yesterday that went under the radar a little bit around here, but we will get into that a little bit later in the program as well. Let's start with just how the day unfolded yesterday. So that happened as we were getting off the air yesterday. It was Elliot Friedman came out with a story that Barry Trotz was going to be stepping down as Predators general manager. At the time, Joe, that we were on the air, we didn't know the reasons for it. People were texting about, man, I hope it's not a health issue. Man, is he trying to get back into coaching? All those things. And Trotz showed up to the press conference and immediately said, he's fine. No health issue. Does not have any interest in getting back in coaching, but that this has been something that he and Bill Haslam and Sean Henry have been discussing since December. And that news came out yesterday. So Barry Trotz remaining on as general manager until such time as the Predators find their replacement. Bill Haslam did say yesterday that they're hoping to have a new general manager in place by the time the draft comes around this year, which makes sense, but we'll see what happens on that front. But they're not limited by that, is what he said. Then he had the game last night, by the way, where they're down 5-1 in the game. And I was like, wow. So Barry Trotz is retired today. Clearly, I was at the morning skate yesterday. Players kind of in shock a little bit. Like Yossi talked about, I had no idea. Andrew Burnett was asked when he found out. And he's like, 8:30 this morning was when I found out about all this stuff. So I think there was some, it was an emotional morning for them. That a lot of those guys love Barry Trotz, obviously. Been around Barry Trotz, you understand that. And then you were down 5-1 early into the second period. And it's like, man, they just zapped. They got nothing in the tank tonight, and they're just getting killed by the Blues. And then all of a sudden, Michael McCarron with a redirection, Philip Forsberg with an absolutely ridiculous shot to make it 5-3. And from that moment on, they totally dominated St. Louis. They came back. They win. Stamkos with 2 in the third. They win 6-5, go from down 5-1 to 6-5, a huge win. I was telling you before the show, That's probably the best that building has been from a crowd perspective in a long time. I mean a long time. And what a day yesterday for the Nashville Predators.
Yeah, no doubt. So when you say the best the building's been, I assume you mean like as the comeback built or like all night?
No, I mean, well, first off, they had this really cool giveaway that they were doing yesterday with the USA kind of Olympic stuff,
which was pretty awesome.
So people were literally lined up around the building. Like I'm walking up there in 5:30 and like all around the building, it's just a big line trying to get in. So warm-ups was packed, the environment was good. But yeah, I mean when it got to like 3-1 St. Louis, it was like, oh boy, it's not good.
Yeah.
But I would say the moment that Forsberg's goal went in, to make it 5-3, that place was jumping in there, which was cool. It's been a minute since I've seen it like that.
Yeah, so I guess because I think back when it's 5-1, and to me it's like I think about that Jags loss for the Titans. Very different situation. That was the Titans firing their GM in the middle of the season for no reason, but apparently like the Preds, maybe just like Saros is the one guy who got affected by Trotz's sudden retirement. I don't know.
He was not good. They were at times horrific in front of him yesterday. I mean, it was a combination of just awfulness. And by the way, like they pulled him. It was 5-1. Onanen had to make about 2 saves in a row that were just ridiculous, or it would have been 6 or 7-1 at that point. But they found a way. They came back and they won the game. So good for them. It's a big win for them yesterday. They got Minnesota coming in on Wednesday, and then they close things out this week in Washington, and then it's the Olympic break. So a couple of more games coming up for them, and we'll see if they can pull some points out of that. Bill Haslam, Sean Henry, Barry Trotz with a press conference yesterday, kind of going over all this and where things go from here. And one of the things that they got to pretty early in the press conference was how exactly did this decision from Barry Trotz come about? And was there a disagreement? Was there, did you look at the performance on the ice if you're Bill Haslam or Sean Henry, and in some ways try to nudge Barry Trotz out the door? And this is what Predators owner Bill Haslam had to say on that front.
This question is for Governor Haslam and Sean. I know you touched on it a bit in your opening statement, but I just want to clarify. There was not a difference of opinion between Barry and the two of you on which direction to take this franchise that led to this decision being moved up to now?
Yeah, absolutely not. And thank you for asking. I meant to say that more clearly. Not only was there not a difference of opinion, this has people said, well, is this a reflection of something that's happening on the ice? Neither are true. This is about Barry making a life decision and then us together. And we've been talking about this for 30 days, talking about, well, what's the best way to do it so we get the best possible result. I want to be as clear as I can. This has nothing to do with any disagreement with Barry or with a reflection of, where we are or are not as a team.
So that was Bill Haslam yesterday, pretty early in the press conference there. So, we'll get into this later. I will say, when I saw the way that they were doing this press conference yesterday, Joe, I said, okay, so it's Bill Haslam, it's Barry Trotz, and it's Sean Henry. My immediate fear was, well, it's going to be Bill Haslam getting up there, making an opening statement, and then basically getting out of the way and letting Sean Henry and Barry Trotz handle it. And to his credit, he did not. He stood there the whole time, answered questions, and then when the press conference was done, hopped over there to the side and started answering more questions. So, look, we've been clamoring around here for owners to talk and answer questions and all that stuff. And I have no idea how good of an owner Bill Haslam is going to end up being for the Predators. We'll see. I did enjoy that yesterday. That was cool.
No, major respect to him. And, you're talking about the owner, you're talking about former governor, like people like that sometimes are, a lot of people like that would avoid it, wouldn't feel it necessary to answer questions, and he was really good. So, and yes, of course, we're going to contrast it with the other professional team in town, but
even them,
but
they've never like ownership has never done that with the Predators.
Yeah, of course, they've had a different situation.
Yeah,
I mean, did Craig Leopold do that way back in the day?
I'm sure Leopold talked a little bit.
Yeah, but no, that's what you want to see. I mean, learn from this, please, other people in town. Because and we can get into how people react to this. We will all day, but that is one clear takeaway for me is it was nice to see that level of transparency and willingness to just take questions because, some of those questions aren't easy.
So we're gonna get all over this today. Why now for Barry Trotz? Why the timing of the early part of February before the trade deadline and the Olympic break coming up, does this all come out? Why did Barry Trotz make this decision? Where do the Predators go from here? And do they go internally with their candidates in their search for GM? Do they open this thing up and seriously pursue external candidates? I mean, there's a lot to get into here when it comes to the Predators, the general manager job, and what this means for the direction of the franchise. I mean, obviously, in connection with this, Joe, what is this going to mean for Andrew Burnett? Anytime your boss is going to be heading out the door, it's probably not a great feeling as a coach. And he didn't get into any of that yesterday, but I mean, just kind of reading the tea leaves of how things work in the NHL, not always a great thing when the guy that's been extremely loyal to you is going to end up being not in that job anymore. So there's a lot connected to this. We'll take your thoughts on it all show long. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Why now for Barry Trotz to make this move? We will get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Barry Trotz stepping down as general manager of the Nashville Predators. Taking your reaction to that. What does it all mean? Where do the Predators go from here? And we're going to get into that throughout the show here today. So, Joe, from everything that I can gather, Elliot Friedman touched a little bit more on this yesterday in the aftermath of his original report. We're going to get to some comments that he had on DVD yesterday a little bit later in the show. From the way the press conference went to some of the things they had to say. I mean, it sounds like Barry Trotz went to Bill Haslam back in December and talked about the idea of, hey, 26, 27 is when my contract ends. So after next year, the contract is up, and that his intention was to retire after that. And they had their discussions, and those two, along with Sean Henry, have been talking about this for the past month, roughly, and eventually came to the conclusion that rather than just waiting until the end of next season, go ahead and get the ball rolling on starting the replacement. And as they mentioned yesterday, Trotz is going to be a part of that process. Bill Haslam, they've hired CAA to help with the search committee. Nick Saban going to be a part of that process as well. So, again, sentences that I didn't think I'd be saying in February of 2026. Nick Saban will be on the search committee to help find the next Predators general manager, but that's going to happen. What do we make of the timing of all this? Because, they wrapped up the press conference yesterday, and one of the interesting things that Bill Haslam said when they kind of moved the conversation off to the side, Joe, was that Barry Trotz, according to Haslam, was always at the end of 2026, 2027, like when he took the job originally as general manager. He said that it's going to be short term, like he's going to retire at the end of that first contract. I mean, that's not the vibe that I've gotten from Barry Trotz, but I wasn't a part of those conversations, so I guess I don't know. And now they moved it up to go ahead and start looking for the search here. So all of that, I think, at the very least, Joe, is unusual with the way that this has all gone down here. What do you make of what it sounds like the timeline was for Barry Trotz and trying to piece all this together?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that if things had gone differently, we probably wouldn't be talking about this. But I believe Trotz. You out there, you're welcome to not if you would not like to. I mean, ultimately, I believe Trotz completely. He made the decision, and this wasn't like them forcing him out again. If it was them forcing him out, it wouldn't have gone down like this.
Yeah.
But also, like, if there wasn't a presumption that he was going to continue past this year, then why are they doing this now also? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, in other words, then you just sort of like, that's just your plan. You just move forward. I mean, they kind of said it, right? Like he went to Bill Haslam and told him about this. And then it was like, oh, okay, well, we need to do something. And Sean Henry involved too. Okay. We need to do something. Apparently those three are the only people who knew. Apparently. I mean, again, if Andrew Burnett found out about this at 8:30 a.m. yesterday, I feel bad for him because that's about when we did.
Yeah.
I mean, like that kind of tells you it was a tight circle, but like the whole way it went down also to me tells you that this is not just what was going to always happen.
Nah, I agree. Yeah, no, I think clearly that I think Barry Trotz, like there's still, I think, some fans that think that he was forced out and that this is like, I guess, their nice way of letting him go.
That's not how it goes.
The details in this situation just don't really add up to that.
Well, let's use the logic of Barry Trotz himself. So he's forced out. So he's mad. He wants to keep his job. He's forced out. So yeah, I'll go do a dog and pony show and lie in front of everybody. Like, think about the logic of that. That doesn't make sense. Why would he do that? He didn't have to do anything. The guy's 63. He's one of the best coaches in NHL history. He can throw up double middles and go sit in his recliner. I mean, like think about that, right? Like, right. Why in the hell would he ever participate in something like yesterday if that's the truth? So let's get that one out of there. Again, timing and when and all that, and what's the real reason? I mean, everybody can speculate about that, but use some logic on that one.
Let's head to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Bob in Antioch to the program. Bob, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, guys. Yesterday afternoon, Elliot Friedman said that he felt like the Predators would be overrun with applicants for the job, that he felt like it was a really plum job. I'd like to know y'all's opinion. How attractive do you think the Predator GM job is?
Yeah, thank you for the call, Bob. We are going to get into that in pretty good detail coming up in the 7 o'clock hour, but just to answer the question really quickly, Joe, I heard Friedman's answer to that yesterday. I think it's very intriguing. Like, he was pretty emphatic. He's like, I think the term he used was, there will be enormous interest in this job.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, and we'll always, even if we weren't going to do this topic again, we're always going to answer Bob's questions because he sets the standard for quick, concise, good questions. The GOAT. That's right. No, it's the same thing you say in a pro league. Like, okay, it's one of how many jobs? Like, there's only so many of them. So, and being a GM of an NHL team is attractive. Obviously, it's the market stuff. I mean, there's a cap. There's a
Sure.
hard cap. But I mean, I think Nashville's attractive. I mean, this is like, I mean, people like coming here and living here and stuff.
Well, and you
So
do
there's
have
that too.
Say what you will about Barry Trotz, and we're going to get into his tenure as GM and how that's going to be remembered and all that stuff. But I mean, they do have a pretty good prospect pool right now. Now, do you have any elite players in there? I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. But you've got some good assets right now to work with when you're looking at the younger part of the team. Now, I think whoever the next general manager is, piecing together what you're going to do with the older part of this team is going to be a puzzle. And I'm interested to see what that looks like. But I mean, there are some attractive parts of the job from the prospect pool that they have kind of built up here.
Yeah. Obviously, there is the I don't know if it's a complication, but yeah, the Saros contract is not great. You know, you inherit that. Like I said, there's some other older guys. But you're also, a lot of the hits and a lot of the tough stuff is kind of has just happened under Barry Trotz's watch.
Yeah.
So you can come here as a GM, and if it's going to be the more traditional or extensive rebuild than we've seen here, then I think it's like that. It's not a bad time as a GM to jump into that, right?
Well,
and kind of start from scratch in a way.
And if you're a Predators fan, I think you see the news originally come out yesterday, and you're surprised, right? Like, it didn't. Barry Trotz has talked about, wanting to bring a cup to Nashville, and he's talked about the path being and or the plan being and pen, path being and pencil, all those things, and how they're building this thing up for the long haul here, right? So they've been very open to that point about say what you will about the moves he's made, whether it's Stamkos, Marchessault, Brady, Shea. By the way, two of those three guys are playing really well right now. Shea and Stamkos playing pretty well.
That's true.
So that's good. But obviously there have been a ton of moves that he's made as general manager that have not gone well and have not worked out. And they have not, they didn't make the playoffs last year. It was a horrific year for them last year. It was a horrible start for them this year. And we'll see, what kind of the story ends up being here with this team this season. But I mean, everybody would agree that over the last year and a half, they have underachieved as to what we thought that they could be when they made all those moves. Now, having said that, you are still talking about the coach here that was guiding you through the expansion days as a franchise. As you mentioned, I mean, he's probably going to, I don't think there's even a probably. He's going to end up being in the Hall of Fame from his coaching career. And when you start listing out, we were talking about this before the press conference yesterday, when you're listing out like the people who have had the biggest impact on this franchise, I mean, you're probably not getting beyond 2 or 3 before Barry Trotz's name comes up. So it's interesting. You got all this history as a coach, and it was cool to see him last night. Like, they made the announcement at the game, and you got a standing O from the crowd, and it was cool stuff and all those things. And then you have the tenure as the GM that, to this point, Joe, has really not gone all that well. And kind of how those two things coexist with each other is interesting. And then there's also, like, he's going to retire here. And what if Brady Martin ends up being, some superstar for the next 10 years? Sure. How much does that change the way you view his GM tenure?
Yeah, well, that's right. There's still things down the road that could make it look better. Also, like, to me, it's very simple with him when you talk about legacy. He has, I mean, he would have had to me, done some serious damage over a pretty long period of time to mess up his legacy with the fans, with the franchise.
Yeah.
I mean, look, he ultimately inherited a downward trajectory that was passed on from David Poile. And of course, early on, it was like, oh, wow, look at all the great things they're doing. They're finally selling guys. They're finally getting assets, all that stuff. And then we know what all happened. There's definitely some mistakes in there. And again, you can go back and look at the whole strategy and say you should have done this instead. But It's not like he took a great thing and ran it into the ground. It was going that way. He tried to load up and see what he could do with a few of these great players who were starting to age, and it didn't work. But I think the legacy, the other stuff way outweighs that.
So, obviously we'll take your thoughts on the Trotz part of this throughout the show. I think another interesting part of this is where does it go from here? And how do the Predators handle the search for the next general manager? And philosophically, what's kind of important to them here? This is something that they've not done very often in the history of their franchise, which is being on the look for either a new coach or a new general manager. So how do you handle this if you're Bill Haslam and the Predators? We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game.
You guys mentioned in the statement that Jeff Kelty, Scott Nickel, and Brian
Brian.
Poyle will be interviewed for the job. Do you guys have an initial preference on whether you are looking internal, external, open to all of it? How's that process
Yeah,
going?
that great question. We really don't. And we've told everybody it's truth. There's no preordained candidate. And we've told the three of them, we want you to apply. They can obviously decide if they want to or not, but we want you to. But we don't really, we're starting with, our goal is to find the very best person to be. Like I said, there's only been 3, this will be the 3rd general manager in the history. Find the very best person to do that. I don't start with a preference, internal versus external.
As Bill Haslam yesterday at the press conference discussing what the next search could look like. Now, they did include, Joe, as a part of their press release yesterday. Trotz had some comments in there about how he was encouraged that Jeff Kelty, Scott Nickel, and Brian Poyle were going to be a part of the interview process. They've asked those guys to apply for the general manager job, and they're going to be a part of the process there. Sean Henry sent out an email kind of summing all this up to the fan base, and he mentioned those 3 guys in the press release as well. So, look, I have no problem with Jeff Kelty, Scott Nickel, Brian Poyle being a part of the interview process. Those guys have been around for a long time. They've been assistant general managers for a long time. That's all fine to me. Joe, for me, and I'm interested to see what Bill Haslam kind of does with this here. You have an opportunity here with, number one, the timing of it all. Like, it is interesting that you're kind of getting a head start on all this, and Haslam talked about that yesterday. You're obviously putting together substantial effort here with hiring CAA to come in and run a search firm for you, and you're involving Saban and all this other stuff. Like, I think the Predators, it is time for them to go outside the organization and shake things up a little bit. You know, we talked about it a little bit yesterday. In some ways, it's been a pretty remarkable story from the standpoint of, you're talking about a franchise that is knocking on the door of 30 years of existence, that in that time has had 4 head coaches and 2 general managers. And that doesn't happen a whole lot in professional sports. So there's something to be said about that. They've had, relative success during that time. For the most part, they've been in the playoff picture. They've been competitive, all those things. Now, in the backdrop of all that, they've been past the second round of the playoffs 1 time during that span. We highlighted yesterday, Joe, some of the issues that have consistently been a problem during that time, namely the drafting and development of big-time forwards. They just haven't had a whole lot of those. So, to me, this is an opportunity to open up your search, cast the wide net, as we used in the Titans coaching search part of this. This is an opportunity to look around, see what your options are, and I think do something that you've not done in the history of your franchise, which is go outside the organization in a general manager role and bring in some new ideas and some new people, and to see what that looks like. And look, I have been around Jeff Kelty and Scott Nickel and Brian Poyle for a long time, and I think all 3 of those guys are smart. All 3 of those guys may at some point end up being general managers in the National Hockey League, and I hope they are. I hope they have a lot of success. But I think here, for this job right now, I would not go with those guys. And it's no disrespect to those guys. I just think philosophically, with where they are right now, it's time to head outside the organization, open this thing up to some new people, some new ideas, and see where that might take you. And I'm interested to see how Bill Haslam and the search firm end up viewing that.
Yeah, I think they're going to view it the same way. I do. I mean, I like the encouraged to apply. Is there like an application for these guys? Like, hey, you got to fill out an app, guys.
I considered looking for it yesterday. So
yeah, is it?
I'll throw my name in there.
Is it on like LinkedIn or something?
Indeed.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Sean Henry, by the way, he did say in this email, the group will include him, Barry Trotz, Michelle Kennedy, who's the president and COO, and then minority owners Chris Sigerin and Nick Saban.
Nick Saban.
Oh yeah, baby. What a search firm. And then of course CAA, you mentioned that earlier. I think they're going to do what you said. I don't know that. There's people out here who are already, worried that it's just like like someone said, was this always just going to be Brian Poyle and Trotz was just the placeholder? I don't think that's the case. I think that they're going to do what you said. And I take the way it was framed, both verbally and in these statements. And even you mentioned Elliot Friedman being asked about internal candidates on DVD. And what did he say? What was the phrasing?
Well, he's basically said, I don't want to say it's impossible for an internal candidate, but it was, reading between the lines, you could tell Elliot didn't want to throw people under the bus. Well, you could, reading between the lines, I think he expects this to be pretty open to outside candidates.
Yeah, and Elliot Friedman, who, again, broke this story. So I put some stock in that, too. It just makes sense. You don't want to, we got to do something different for the sake of doing something different. But, yeah, I think some things do need to change. And what exactly, I have no idea. All those guys, those internal candidates, forgot more hockey than I'll ever know.
Sure.
So, I mean, you have to respect that. But there's something to be said for mixing things and just bringing in fresh eyes. I mean, there's always, in pro sports, there's just always new things out there. There's always things that evolve. Everybody keeps up with everybody else and all that. But it's still different when you get someone from a different place and bring them in. And I would tend to, what Bob asked earlier, I would tend to believe that there's going to be really good the candidates for this job.
Or we're going to get into some of the candidates in the 7:00 hour and what that looks like, and some comments from Elliot Friedman. But I just think philosophically, again, I'm with you. I don't think if you're looking around and you feel like, I don't know, Scott Nickel is clearly the best candidate, then it shouldn't matter if he's already in your organization. Again, no disrespect to those guys, I got a hard time believing that one of those three guys are going to be the best candidate when you open up this search to everybody it looks like you're going to open this thing up to. Not that those guys can't be good candidates, but this should be an opportunity as an organization where you're trying to go bring in the best possible person for the job. And again, we're going to get into some of those candidates in the 7:00 hour. But Friedman threw out guys like, Brendan Shanahan and Mark Bergevin, who have been general managers before. There are some guys that are up and coming in the league around different organizations that are going to be general managers sooner rather than later. I think you owe it to yourself to approach it that way. And look, one of the things that Bill Haslam said yesterday was, this is a June 30th league. There's a lot of contracts that come up by that point that you're going to be talking to people about. And he said, he used kind of the fishing analogies. People, they want to get down there and get their line in the water. Well, why not be first? I'd just as soon be first, put my line in the water and be the first one down there. So, just kind of reading between the lines there, it feels like outside's the way they're going to go. I hope it is. I hope, this has been an organization that just hasn't had this opportunity come up through. Really ever. Even the last time out, right? It was a handoff. It was Poyle handing it off to Trotz. Yeah. So as for the general manager job, it's really
they've
never been open. Yeah.
In 1996, they did a search for a GM.
Yeah. It's never been open since then. Yeah. So again, you don't do it for the sake of doing it, but I've just got a hard time believing when you open up the search to everyone that you're going to end up hiring an internal candidate after that. That's just me.
Yeah. I will say that, the open mind is always good. The open mind is always good. So, people, if it were to somehow come around to that, then no one would ever believe that they actually did. It's just like if what's his name would have been the Titans head football coach, then no one would have ever believed that they did a credible search, right?
Oh, McCoy?
No, my gosh.
Nagy.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, Nagy, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm with you now.
Had Nagy gotten that job, no one would have ever believed the Titans actually did a search,
right.
Even though I'm sure they would have. But so, it would have to be knock your socks off good interview to me for an internal candidate to win this job. But you got to keep an open mind.
Well, the bottom line is, and I fully understand that you cannot make decisions this way as an organization where it's like, what are the fans going to do, right? You can't make decisions that way.
Or you'll be sitting with them.
But, if they go hire Brian Poyle to be the general manager, or even like Scott Nickel, right? if they go hire those guys to be the general manager, it's not going to be very popular with the fan base. I'm just here to tell you. Like, it's not going to be. And again, you don't make your decisions based off that. Like, if you feel like Scott Nichols is the best guy for the job, then I guess go hire Scott Nichols. But I'm just telling you, like, if that's the route that they go, there is going to be a large portion of this fan base that says, what? Like, this is the first time the general manager job's really come open in 30 years, and you guys are just going to keep promoting from within the family? Like, it won't go well with the fan base.
No. Now, of course, they go hire the hot shot from outside, and in 3-4 years, everybody wants to run that guy out of town too.
Sure.
Yeah, that's possible, but no question that like winning the press conference right now means an outside candidate.
Yeah.
And I again, I beyond the GM, I mean, I don't know. I don't have answers for like the issues with forwards over the years and all that stuff, but like how much are they changing, you know, the scouting and stuff like that? Like how much of an overhaul is needed, or are we talking about here?
Well, and the bottom line is, like, you're an organization that has been, like, they're a successful organization, right? Like, they have, as we talked about, they have, for the most part, other than the early expansion years, ever since then, they have basically been in the playoffs or right on
A
the
year
cusp
off
of it. Yeah,
here.
a year off here, a couple years off there, but they're back
13.
in pretty quickly. If they've never gone through this big rebuild thing, and we're going to get into that coming up here in just a second. But like, I think there's value in how they have run their franchise and the consistency and the people being in the same place, all those things. But again, like, the goal of professional sports is to win championships. And you've been past the second round of the playoffs one time in your history. So I think when you view it that way, you look at it and you say, you know what? There's an opportunity here maybe to get some people in that we've not worked with before, to get some new ideas in and see where things go. And look, it may be horrible. Like, you may make the wrong hire, and somebody outside the organization comes in and is like, good Lord, we screwed that up.
Pro sports.
But it's pro sports, man. Like, I think when you open the search up and you're looking for the amount of people that it sounds like are going to be interested in this job, I think that's probably the way it's going to end up going.
Yeah. It's pro sports. So then if that happens, then you go hire someone else,
Yeah.
and you until you find the right person. Real quick, Doug in Franklin is asking if this is a Haslam ownership issue. In other words, Barry's early retirement due to Bill's over involvement, and mentions the Cleveland. I would say, yeah, again, I've been saying this a long time, but I understand it has not gone well for Jimmy Haslam and the Cleveland Browns, and that they're brothers. But yeah, I'd try to keep an open mind on Bill Haslam, and
They're not the same
as an
person.
owner, they're not the same person.
Yeah.
And again, I don't follow everything that happens up there. So no, I don't think that's Bill's over involvement. I mean, I don't think so.
I have not gotten any vibes that there's over involvement. Matter of fact, I think Predators ownership over the years has probably needed to be a little bit more involved than they've been.
Absolutely.
And I think you're seeing some of that from Bill Haslam. So I think that part of it's good. Now, what does this mean about the direction the franchise is headed in terms of, is a rebuild coming? Like, are they going to kind of rethink the way that they're going here in terms of their roster? Bill Haslam touched on that a little bit yesterday, and we will get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. We'll have Alex Doherty from the Tennessean joining us at 7:30. We'll get his thoughts on Barry Trotz stepping down as Predators general manager. Taking your thoughts in the meantime, 615-737-1025. Joe, we've gone all over the place with this one. We will get into some candidates and the attractiveness of this general manager job for the Predators coming up here in just a few minutes to begin the 7 o'clock hour. Philosophically, what does this mean about the direction the Predators are heading? DVD had the good debate yesterday on, rebuild versus no rebuild. What's the right path moving forward from here based on where the roster is and where the young guys are? What does this all mean for Andrew Brunette? I mean, there's a lot of things to dive into on this. But Bill Haslam was asked about that yesterday. I think it was Adam that asked him the question of, you guys have never really gone through like the rebuild and the pain of it and what that looks like since you've been a franchise. What does this signal about maybe where all that's heading? And this is what Bill Haslam had to say on that front.
I'll say it this way. The GM we hire is going to be responsible for deciding, here's what kind of hockey we want to play. Okay. And then their job is going to be to drive that all the way through the organization. I don't know enough to decide what kind of hockey we're going to play. And then that person is going to have to decide, do I like what we have? Can we build from here? Do we need to, to look at the assets we have? They need to make that decision. We're going to hire somebody again that's strong enough to A, determine direction, and then B, when we decide on that direction, make sure we've vertically integrated it all the way from here to how we draft, to how we develop people, to how we're playing in Milwaukee, the whole deal. But that'll be something that they decide. We're obviously in a position right now, as Barry started out, like, hey, we'd love to throw out November. If so, we'd be right you'd look at us as one of the best, 10 teams in the league. Unfortunately, they don't let you throw months away. But I like this team. I like how they're playing. And we have some great hockey players. I like the way they play together. Our fans, I think, are enjoying it. So to say that we're going to scrap all this and totally start over, I don't think is going to be the right approach.
So that was Bill Haslam. I thought interesting stuff at the end there because, the first part of that answer, Joe, he's like, we're going to go hire somebody, and it's their job to determine what we've got, what they think that means, and where the direction is going here. So you hear that, and it's like, okay, well, it's pretty open-minded as to what the future is going to look like. And then the end of it there is like you see what they've got and the way they're playing right now, and he said he doesn't think that starting over is going to be the right approach. So what did you make of that from Haslam and what that means in terms of maybe what they're looking for in the direction here with the GM?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I just think he sounds, like it's an owner talking about his team, and I think he sounds reasonable and like he's just going through, the reasonable way of thinking about the whole thing. I don't know that I can draw, big conclusions on it. Again, I guess you listen to all that and you have an open mind on however this hire could go. But I think I think it certainly makes sense. And again, I think he comes across as like this is going to be a thoughtful process. Like Matt here is like Bill was over involved with the Vols for a long time, so I figured he's over involved here. I don't know. Was Bill Haslam over involved with the Vols? I know Big Jim Haslam is like the trustee and massive donor forever.
And what does being over involved with the Vols mean?
I mean, there's the Haslams.
I understand that there's boosters and all that, but I mean, I don't know. They walk in there and be like, "You will hire Jeremy Pruitt."
I mean, there were definitely like booster factions and the Haslams on one side with different coaches and Butch and stuff. But I don't know that. I think Bill was the governor then, like when the Butch stuff was going on. So I don't know. But no, I don't know. To answer your question, I don't know what to conclude from that. But again, like every answer he gives to me, it just seems like he's put a lot of thought into this. He recognizes his limitations. Like you got to hire good people and let them do their job, but also he's obviously involved, which is, I think, all good things.
Yeah, I do too. Like I think there's been some speculation, and we've talked about this. Like, he is now the majority owner, so he's in charge, and we haven't really seen how that's going to go in terms of what does his patience level look like? What does this has been the most patient organization in sports. Well, you can make the argument. since the time that they've been here. Well, is that going to be different now that Bill Haslam is in charge and is the owner here? So we've talked about that. I mean, that's going to be really interesting as time goes on here to see how he handles all that. The impression that I get from him and that I've gotten from him since he took over is I think he really cares about it. I think he wants to learn a lot more about how this whole thing works. I think he has. Like, I think he's been very involved in, Board of Governors meetings. He's been trying to figure this whole thing out to where he can make educated decisions on all this stuff. But I think at the end of the day, he wants to hire the right people and sit back and let them do their job. Like, I totally believe him when he says that he's got full trust in Barry Trotz. I do. Like, I've never doubted that when it comes down to it. And I think whoever they hire, he'll probably take the same approach. Like, they'll go hire somebody to be the general manager, and he's going to give them free reign to run the team the way they see fit. And then at the end of the day, if it ain't working and you got to make a decision, then you'll step in at that point. But I don't think Bill Haslam is like going to be in checking in with the general manager every 5 days and be like, have you thought about this? Because I think we should probably go this way. Forget what you're saying. Let's go do this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's a recipe for a dysfunctional franchise. And that's the thing. If you're a Bill Haslam and you bring in a Nick Saban, and I understand Saban was at the Preds, games. I'm sure Saban likes hockey, fine. But like, their strength should be finding people, finding leaders.
Yes.
And then you leave the nitty gritty for those people because you hired them and paying them a lot of money to do the job. That's how it's supposed to work.
Yep. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. So how attractive is this job for the Predators? What are some candidates that could be out there that could be on the table for the Predators to hire as general manager? We will get into all that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Tuesday morning. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Alex Doherty from the Tennessean will be with us at 7:30. Looking forward to that conversation with him. Got the Rob Rant coming up later this hour. And taking your thoughts on Barry Trotz stepping down as Predators general manager. A lot of your thoughts that we've already gotten to. Appreciate those coming in. Keep them coming at 615-737-1025. So, how attractive is this job? What does this job look like in terms of the open market? How many candidates are going to be interested? Who are some of those candidates that the Predators could be targeting for the general manager position that, again, Bill Haslam says they hope to get filled sooner rather than later, and hopefully by the time the draft comes around this year. So what does that all look like? Elliot Friedman, who originally broke this story yesterday, was on with DBD and talked about the interest in this job and what that could all look like for the Predators as they begin this search. Here is what Elliot Friedman had to say yesterday on DVD.
Let me just say this, Adam. There is enormous interest in this job. Okay? I think that is actually what I should say first, is that I think that CAA are doing this search, they are going to be deluged with people interested in this. So, and I thought that would be the case as I was working on the story. And I think, and nothing that I have heard in the last 7 hours since this got out has made me change my opinion. I think the Predators are going to have a ton of interest in this job.
So that was Elliot Friedman yesterday on DVD. A ton of interest, enormous interest in the job. So, I mean, again, we know Elliot Friedman. He doesn't just say things, like he's pulling that stuff from people that he's talked to. And look, again, it's a general manager job in the National Hockey League. So there's going to automatically be a lot of interest. There are plenty of assistant general managers, not just in their own organization, but in other places, Joe, that have not been general managers yet that are looking forward to that. There are guys who have been general managers before that want to get back in the game and be general managers again. So it's not surprising that there's going to be a lot of interest in a general manager job in the National Hockey League. But I did pay attention to, like, I guess how emphatic Elliot Friedman was when he said that.
Yeah. I do wonder, like, has he ever in a situation like this and the million radio hits he does about in different markets about different jobs say, hey, there's not that many people really interested in this GM job.
I don't know that anyone will apply.
Yeah. In fact, I might, I told my brother maybe he should apply. I don't know. No one wants it. It's a given to me that there's a lot of interest in a GM job. I'm with you. The way he said it, maybe there's some extra enthusiasm from some people. Like, I really think this could be a great job. Again, I think the atmosphere, the city, those things are attractive. Like, I'm sorry, all due respect to Barry Trotz's hometown, the Peg. I had a lot of fun in Winnipeg. I would rather live in Nashville than Winnipeg. Just call me crazy, okay?
There haven't been a whole lot of difference last week, but yeah.
Well, that's true. Yeah, we've lived the life of the Peg for about a week, and that's about enough of it. This is an attractive place to be. The actual hockey elements, how attractive are they? Yeah, it probably depends on how you feel about certain people. Maybe you do think Brady Martin is going to be in a couple of years unbelievable, or there's some other really good prospects. I'll tell you, I've watched a little bit of Riker Lee this year. Woo, baby, he's got a little bit of skill.
Yep.
So I there's some good prospects. There's some. So maybe that's part of it. But I guess I'd be surprised if the nuts, the nitty, the nuts and bolts, like hockey talent is that big of a draw. Again, it's not bad. You got some potential there. Also, is Haslam a draw? Is leadership, Sean Henry, Michelle, or they had, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of different things boxes that people want to check when they're looking at a franchise. This is look, if you want to talk about the most, as we've talked about, most stable and non-reactive franchise in pro sports, it's probably this one, right?
Yep.
Historically.
Yes. Well, a couple of names he threw out there, and again, as Friedman pointed out in the interview with DVD yesterday, and if you missed it, by the way, go check it out. It was really good stuff from DVD and Elliot Friedman yesterday. You know, there are established guys that are going to be interested in this. There are up-and-comers around the league, and he mentioned a few of the up-and-comers. Like there's some on Florida staff, obviously, with how much success that they've had that are going to get some looks around the league. Tampa Bay, with how consistent they've been. They got some assistant GMs, internal guys there that are going to get a lot of looks around the league. You know, there are guys sprinkled throughout the league that are going to get, I think, an interview or some interest here from the Predators and other teams moving forward. A couple of names that are going to stand out from what Friedman said yesterday. He mentioned Brendan Shanahan, who was with Toronto, I believe, from 2014 to 2025. So he was there 11 years in some capacity as the president. They did, the Shanna plan, and they ended up with the Core Four through all that. And,
Shanny, baby. Love that guy.
A lot of regular season success when it came to Toronto and how things went down.
It was really bad, I will say, when he got there.
It
was very bad.
So the Shanahan was a name that he threw out there. Mark Bergevin was a name that he threw out there, who was the general manager of the Montreal Canadiens when the Shea Weber PK Subban trade went down. So we remember that one. They did get to a Stanley Cup final with Mark Bergevin as the general manager. They got taken down by Steven Stamkos and Tampa Bay Lightning. So he is currently an assistant general manager in Buffalo. So Bergevin could be a name that is on the list. And as Friedman pointed out in the interview, there are going to be a lot of guys on this list. I mean, I think you mentioned Mark Gillis, who used to be the general manager of Vancouver. Like a lot of guys that have had the job before. And another thing that's interesting, and I don't know how much this matters, but Friedman did point it out. Like there's two different ways of doing things in the NHL when it comes to how you format that. Like there's the general manager and there's the president of hockey operations. Well, the Predators have always just had the general manager, right? And that's how they've operated. Well, for instance, Shanahan, when he was in Toronto, he wasn't the general manager. He was the president of hockey operations. They had a general manager. It was Brad Treliving. Before that, it was Kyle Dubas. And the general manager focused on kind of the hockey part of the stuff and building the roster. But ultimately, Shanahan had final say. Like he had final say on everything that was going on, and he was the one that kind of dealt with ownership. So that's another thing with the Haslam part of this. Like I'm assuming that they're just going to go hire a general manager, and it's going to be the same kind of structure that they've always had. But when they get through this process here, are they going to say, you know what? We're going to go hire a president of hockey operations and a general manager. I don't know. Like there are teams that operate that way.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Haslam looks across the river and is like, wow, the Titans have 75 former general managers in their front office. Let's try that.
We need our own Chad Brinker. Pronto. Yeah, that's an interesting, because to me, it's like you could just have a GM and just have assistant GMs, or you could have this president, director of hockey ops and a GM under him. I guess like if you have that, aren't you just basically just paying way more money to two people than like based on title? I don't know. It seems to me like
I'm sure there's a reason people do that, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you'd probably be paying a little bit more.
Because it's like, then you get into, I don't know, like how much does the president of hockey ops deal with any of the other stuff? Like, I don't think it's business stuff, right? I mean, they've got that covered.
Don't know.
So
it just depends on how you define the role.
It's confusing. I'm just going to assume it's going to be a GM. And I guess it sounds or it seems like it's probably going to be a GM who's been a GM. But what would people think about a hot shot assistant GM somewhere in a successful organization who has not been a GM?
I have no problem with that. I don't. I mean, I think you should be, as the Predators organization, I think you should be open to all of it. Like it doesn't, to me, it doesn't have to be somebody who's been a general manager before. I mean, there are plenty of people that are in the league that have been a part of really successful front offices that are going to get jobs. All right. They're going to get jobs moving forward here. Some of those guys may end up being really good GMs moving forward. I mean, look, it's the NHL. The general manager part of this is interesting because we've talked about this in the NFL. It kind of feels like when you're in the NFL and you're a GM and it doesn't work, like you just never get another shot. There have been all kinds of general managers in the NHL that have had multiple stops. Like it's a pretty common thing in the NHL.
Yeah, Nate asking that exact question. And yeah, I mean, I think coach and GM in the NHL, and it seems like in the NBA too, it's just a lot of you could have a few stops.
Yeah.
It's like you kind of establish that you're good, which is interesting because obviously with coaches, you think about voices running out. Like Laviolette, great
Sure.
example, right? He's a classic example. Great coach. And then, yeah, okay, man, I'm just sick of you. Bye. But with GM, like you're not dealing with the team every day. So, like, you wouldn't think it would be like that, but it kind of is like that.
Well, I mean, Bergevin, for instance, like, would Predators fans be excited if they hired Mark Bergevin to be the general manager? Like, I think his record was, let's see here, 344, 265, and 81 in the regular season over 10 years. I mentioned the trade, like the Shea Weber, PK Subban trade. Obviously, like the Predators, it worked out well for them. They got to the Stanley Cup final the next year. It also worked out pretty well for Montreal. They got to the Stanley Cup final a few years after that. He also made the trade for Nick Suzuki with Vegas. Vegas traded for Max Pacioretty, and Nick Suzuki was a part of that. And that's taken an established veteran player, identifying young talent on another roster, bringing them in. And now you look at Nick Suzuki, he's really good. And he is going to be a really good player in this league for a long time. He's got 65 points in 56 games this year, and he's outstanding defensively. So that's a good feather in the cap of Mark Bergevin of identifying a younger player on somebody else's roster, executing the move to bring that player in, and now you're seeing that pay off right now for Montreal, even though he's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, there's also just the whole – I mean, there's beyond what they've done, the win-loss, different, big-time moves. It's like what about like organizational structure and things like that too, right? And philosophy. I mean, to me, if I'm talking to a candidate, I'd like a candidate to tell me, when you've looked at the Preds from afar, like how have you viewed us? I mean, people know what other franchises are good at, not good at. We all know what the Preds have been good at and not good at. Why do you think that is?
Yeah.
There's a question I would ask.
Yeah.
Also, I'd ask, what are your main strengths and what are your main weaknesses?
Yes, there we go.
That would be another one I'd ask.
Justin asking, what is CAA going to do in this? Are they the ones kind of culling through the applications so the Predators don't have to do that?
Yeah, it's like the early part of a search. You get a search firm and then they
filter. That's what they do.
Exactly. And they'll cut it down.
Well, also, I mean, look, CAA, pretty large agency. There are going to be agents of clients of CAA that are going to be interested in this job. So maybe an inside track there on some of those candidates as well.
Yeah.
So CAA is not going to end up making the decision. I mean, Bill Haslam said yesterday that he is leading the search, and they have hired CAA to help with that. But like him and Sean Henry and I guess to a certain degree, Nick Saban in there and Michelle Kennedy and all these people, like they're going to ultimately be the ones, Barry Trotz, helping to make this decision. It's not like CAA is going to be like, you're hiring this person.
Yeah. Yeah. Or AI.
Doesn't mean anything.
CAA is like a sorting tool. I guess maybe it is like AI. It's like, how you send emails to your staff now through AI. CAA is the sorting tool for a search.
When they hire the general manager, is Saban going to be like, is he showing up at the press conference? Is he the one laying it out there?
I assume he'll be there.
Bill, sit down.
I got this.
I'll make sure that I handle this part of it.
I think he'll be there. He's in, man. He's in on this stuff.
615-737-1025, our phone number. We got Alex Doherty coming up at 7:30. We'll get into Barry Trotz stepping down as Predators general manager with him. Let's hear from you. What do you make of what Barry Trotz has done here, where the Predators go from here, the general manager position, some candidates you'd like to see hired by the Nashville Predators? We'll take your thoughts on all of it at 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Alex Doherty will be with us at 7:30, and we'll get his thoughts on Barry Trotz stepping down as Predators general manager. I got some wristbands to give away, a 4-pack of wristbands to the National Wild Turkey Federation Sports Show at the Opryland Convention Center coming up Thursday, February the 12th through Saturday, February the 14th. To caller number 4, 615-737-1025. Caller 4 will win a 4-pack of wristbands to the National Wild Turkey Federation Sports Show at the Opryland Convention Center. I have been multiple times. It's awesome. You're going to want to be there. So 615-737-1025.
Gobble, gobble.
Gobble, gobble. A lot of stuff in there. A lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So
It sounds amazing.
it's pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool stuff. A lot of your thoughts to get to on our text line, on our YouTube chat. That we appreciate the participation. Keep them coming all show long. I'll sum up some of the questions that we've gotten, Joe, just in terms of what this is going to look like. You know, we've been asked about specific candidates and what that could be. We've also been asked a lot about what this is going to mean from Andrew Brunette. So let's start there. We've not really gotten into that. You're Andrew Brunette. You're sitting there yesterday. I mean, he said he found out at 8:30 yesterday morning, which is about when everybody else found out that Barry Trotz was stepping down as general manager of the Nashville Predators. You know, conventional wisdom would say, Joe, it's probably not great for the coach if the Predators go out and hire somebody else, particularly if that hire ends up being outside of the organization who has not worked with Andrew Brunette before. Typically in professional sports, and certainly in the NHL, that does not bode well for the coach that is already there. Now, Elliot Friedman touched on this a little bit yesterday, and one thing he said, which I totally agree with, is when you go hire this next general manager, whatever happens with the coach needs to be that general manager's decision. Like if they want to sit there, and I think Brunette's got 1 year left on his contract after this, if the general manager says, well, let's give him the year and let's see what happens there, and then we'll go from there, that's what you do if you're the Predators. If the general manager comes in and says, you know what, I got a guy in mind that I think I want to be the coach of this hockey team, that's what you do if you're the Nashville Predators. I don't know specifically what this is going to mean for Andrew Brunette, although that's going to depend on who gets hired and what that looks like. And frankly, some of it's going to depend on what does it look like to end the year here? Like, what do they do at the trade deadline? Do they make the playoffs? Do they sneak up and beat somebody in the playoffs? Like, all these things are going to factor into it. But what's your read, Joe, on what this all means for Andrew Brunette, knowing that there's uncertainty as to what this is all going to look like from the general manager position moving forward?
Yeah, I feel pretty strongly that they're going to make an outside hire. A little bit of reading between the lines there, but I feel pretty strongly about that. I'll be pretty surprised if they make an internal hire. And then I would be surprised if the external hire keeps Andrew Brunette. It's just usually you're gonna hire your guy. So, and it's not like now to your point, what if the Preds go on some incredible run here and it's like, how the heck do you fire that guy? You know, I mean, there's always stuff that happens. You know, Steve Fisher had to fill in for Bill Frieder at the start of the 1989 NCAA tournament because Bill Frieder went to Arizona State. Well, Steve Fisher won 6 games in the national championship. How the heck do you fire that guy? You don't. He's your coach. So, yeah, like a playoff series win, my goodness. I do think that barring something dramatic like that, at least for Andrew Brunette, I think he has acquitted himself well this year.
I think he's done a good job.
You know, so first of all, that should give him a chance with whoever comes in here. Like, you got to take it seriously. But obviously, if you're Andrew Brunette and all this came down, first of all, I'm like, Barry, you couldn't have told me at like 11 p.m. last night. Really, dude?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
But also, yeah, you have to look at it and be like, you know, it's could obviously be tough for long term. But also, Andrew Brunette, I mean, a lot of people were wondering why he wasn't fired this fall and stuff like this. So Barry stuck with him. And did he know for sure that Barry was going to do that?
I don't think so.
You know, you kind of show up every day and go to work, and you know, Barry kept him around. And again, he's done a really good job turning this thing around.
Well, again, he deserves credit. Like, as much as people were all over him, and I understood it. Like, you know, I said it when they got back from Europe after the trip to Sweden and they lost to Pittsburgh, and there's that break in the schedule. We talked about it that day on the show. Like, it made a lot of sense at that time to fire Andrew Brunette. They were bad. They were among the worst teams in the league. The previous year had been an absolute disaster. And did I think at the time that that was all on the coach? No, but that's what happens in this league. Like the coach ends up paying the price. They didn't do it. And to his credit and to their credit in the locker room, they have made this interesting. I mean, last night's a perfect example. It was going about as bad as it can go for half of that game. And then they completely turned it around. I mean, just totally. And I understand it's St. Louis, and St. Louis isn't good. When you're down 5-1 in an NHL game, like you're not coming back from that. I think there was a stat that my buddy in St. Louis showed me. That's only happened 95 times in the history of the league, a comeback like that. The league's been around for a long time, man.
I thought that was the most dangerous lead in the game. Huh,
Yeah,
that's
4-goal lead. Yeah,
95 times, really?
that's what the numbers say.
That is an insane stat.
Exactly.
Are you serious?
So, like, it doesn't happen very often when you're down 4 and you come back and win the game. So, again, like, last night doesn't represent everything, but it does show you, like, this is clearly a team that never gave up on the coach. They never stopped, quote unquote, playing for the coach. And they've dug themselves out of a massive hole that they were in throughout the month of November. And now, is it going to be good enough to make the playoffs? I don't know. Do I think that they're good enough to seriously compete in the playoffs and challenge for a Stanley Cup? No, I don't. But clearly, from the coaching standpoint, I think you have to give him credit for what they've done in the aftermath of all that.
Yeah. And so if it does turn out that way, that at the end of the year, they hire, or whenever they hire outside GM, he comes in, he has his guy in mind, all that stuff. I do think that helps Andrew Brunette moving forward. The way that this year has gone helps them moving forward. And as we've said many times, and we've said it today, in this league, you get more chances.
You do. And, from a Brunette standpoint, I mean, when you're bringing in, I mean, that's the thing about bringing somebody in from the outside. If you bring somebody in to take over the general manager job as the outside, that, typically probably doesn't mean good things for the coach, but it also gives you a fresh pair of eyes on your roster too. Like, what does that mean for some of the veteran players that are going to be here? Like, what direction are they going? I mean, does somebody come in and say, we got to get Jonathan Marchessault out of here immediately? We got to, I don't know. Does somebody, like Barry Trotz clearly has been very loyal to UC Saros. And I understand that right now his numbers aren't good. And the contract, like how many takers are going to be for the contract out there? I don't know. But, I mean, look, they could hire somebody that comes in and says, first order of business, we got to find a way to get rid of this goalie contract. I have no idea what that's going to look like. But you're getting a fresh pair of eyes on all of it if you go that way, coach included.
Yeah. No, that's – and speaking of Saros, I mean, they've got a texter who's upset. There are some people who are upset, who the texter says, sorry I'm bitching so much, but why did Trotz come here for 2.5 years? Now he's set up a tough go for the next guy. Seems like all he did was set us back 5 to 10 years. Maybe that's why Bill Haslam Strunk told him to hit the old dusty trail. That's a lot of anger in one text. Did he really set him back 5 to 10 years? I think that is a little bit dramatic, but the goalie contract's bad.
The goalie contract's not good right now. I mean, it's looking like it could be really bad. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Now, I mean, the prospect pool is undeniably in much better shape now than it was when he first took over. Now, when he first took over, it was pretty bad, right?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of work to do on that front. But no, I think the prospect pool is looking good. But again, how many of those guys are going to be elite? Because they need a couple of them to be elite. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Alex Doherty will be with us coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Tuesday morning. Barry Trotz stepping down as Predators general manager in a very eventful day yesterday for the Nashville Predators. And to help us talk more about that, we head to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Alex Doherty from the Tennessean. Alex, good morning. How are you? How'd you sleep?
I'm doing okay. I have to let you know I'm a little under the weather, so I'm not feeling great, but I'm here, and that made yesterday even more exciting to be not feeling great during the probably one of the biggest days in franchise history. So, but I'm here. I'm ready to go.
Well, we respect your effort and your dedication to our program by waking up and joining us this morning.
No doubt.
So let's just kind of start here. I mean, obviously, yesterday was a very shocking day. I don't think anybody saw that coming, including apparently Andrew Burnett and all the players. So, a very shocking day from that standpoint. What did you make of, I guess, the explanation given for why the timing is happening now and how long this has apparently been going on in terms of Bill Haslam, Sean Henry, and Barry Trotz discussing all this?
Yeah, that was a really interesting part. The two things really stood out to me. The first one being just how emotional Trotz was. You could just really tell, talking, seeing him on the stage and then also talking to him one-on-one off to the side, just like how much this decision was weighing on him. I mean, this man really struggled with this. I mean, he talked a lot about what he wanted to do for Nashville, what he wanted to do for the Predators. He wanted to win a Stanley Cup and all that. But I think just the weight of the job, the time that it took, the clocking, the ticking clock as he's, seeing his family grow up or be in ill health and that kind of thing, that just weighed on him. And it's just like the emotion that was pouring out of him there was very apparent. So that stood out to me. But then the other thing, like you just mentioned about the timeline, the transparency, really, I think I think we should definitely celebrate the fact that they're being transparent about this. I think there's a couple of advantages because they now have a lot of runway. They have the opportunity to see if there's any other moves in the NHL before, June 30th, with GMs either leaving their jobs or getting fired, or if there's changes elsewhere that could affect their talent pool to choose from. I think that the timing of it being in the middle of this kind of playoff run, I guess, or not playoff run, but push for the playoffs. Seeing the team do things like what they did last night, I think it's just kind of unfortunate. I don't think that they planned that. As I understand it, this date was picked as much as a week ago. It wasn't like they were waiting for a home game to do it. I think that ideally they wouldn't want to do it on the same day as a game. So I think the timing was just unfortunate, and that was just how it had to work. But I think I think there's probably more advantages to disadvantages to announcing it now. It gave a chance for Barry Trotz to have a little moment with the fans last night. It puts everything out in the open. Here's what we're doing. I know that's pretty different for a lot of sports franchises around town. that there's an owner that spoke to us for 45 minutes or an hour yesterday, answered every one of our questions. Obviously was clear about what he couldn't tell us, but that's pretty refreshing. I think you have to celebrate that. That was great to see. So, but overall, just one of the more shocking days, up there with the Shea Weber, PK Subban trade, kind of situation where no one saw this coming, and now the franchise could be changed forever because of it.
I'd put it there with the day that, the Preds announced Trotz is going to replace Poyle too, right?
Yeah,
like that was another one of those days.
sure.
Like, holy cow!
They switched from Pepsi to Coke. That's a good day too.
See, you guys aren't old enough to remember New Coke. God, it was awful. Or maybe Alex is, but so Haslam.
No, I'm not.
All right, great. I'm even more depressed. So I'm with you on Haslam and his transparency, and I thought that was really good to see. And also, I've been people like there aren't too many people who are in on this, but the whole idea of like Trotz was actually fired, like he's not going to do a press conference, like that's a press
Right.
release. But I do wonder, Alex, your original point, and I totally get all the personal things that go into a decision like this, but I do wonder if the results were different, if things were going well or better than they are, would we be talking about this right now?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we did find out that one bit of news that was kind of buried was that apparently Barry told the team when he came on in 2023 that he would be I think he called it a one contract thing, like he would work through 26, 27, and then we'll see. I mean, yeah, sure. If the team made the playoffs every year of his tenure and was making deep runs of the playoffs, he probably would stick around for another one. But I think what happened is Barry Trotz came from a coaching career that, he had to be on the road all the time. He was away from his family. He was coaching all the time, and there was, barely an off season. And then maybe assumed that the general manager job would be a little different in terms of the time commitment and the travel. But, he, instead of going to games, playing, Pittsburgh on a Tuesday, he's at the World Juniors. He's at scouting meetings. He's having to go meet with other general managers. He's on the phone all the time with 31 other guys. I think the time commitment, the energy that it took to do the job was, I think, probably more than he expected. So people realize a couple years into jobs, like, hey, I don't know if I can keep doing this for very long. And I don't know that this is what I thought it was going to be. I don't think he would admit that. I think he would say, that the job was just right, but he's now just choosing his family. But seeing how it all played out yesterday, I feel like there's an element of, I didn't realize how much the general manager had to do every single day, and there's just too much on the plate to balance what I want to do with my family at this point. And so that was part of the decision. So could it have gone differently if the team was more successful? Possibly, but I think there's also a chance that he would have just figured out who the successor was going to be and said, all right, I built you a winning team. I'm going to sit back and let you take the reins now. So I think it really just comes down to where Barry Trotz is at this point in his life.
So now where do the Preds go from here? I mean, they laid out the search plan yesterday, and they're hiring CAA, and Nick Saban's going to come in and help with all that. And I'm sure they're going to exhaust a lot of options in terms of people they interview and all those things. Haslam discussed yesterday, there's no preference in his mind in terms of internal versus external. I made the case earlier, Alex, that, when you think about it, the general manager job really has never come open for the Predators. It's been David Poile, and it was handed off to Barry Trotz. They've never really had an open general manager position. So to me, this is an opportunity to go outside the organization, bring in some new faces, some new ideas, and see if ultimately that can help lead you to places you've never been before. And they've been, they've had a lot of success as a franchise. They've been past the second round of the playoffs one time. So what do you make about the opportunity in front of the Predators right now? And do you expect the hire to be internal or external?
If I'm guessing right now, I think the hire is external. The trend seems to be headed, they think about everything that's happened over the last couple of years from the main, the leadership positions and the figurehead. Bill Haslam takes over. He has spent a couple of years now just kind of seeing how things work. The bringing on of Nick Saban, I think that can definitely be overstated, but the way that they did it really just presented as, this is a person we want to help change the direction of this team. So I think you can consider that as a marker along the way of we're wanting to change the way we do things, and we want to actually be more successful and think of new ideas, right? I would lean an external candidate. I think that they're genuine when they say they want Brian Poile, Jeff Kilty, and Scott Nickel to apply and to be a part of that process. But I think that a big part of the hiring process has to be is they have to present that basically Bill Haslam has to say, look at this contract, look at this list of contracts. How would you fix this? And if you ask that question to Brian Poyle or the others, the answer is going to be very difficult, right? I mean, because they have to be like, well, we're the ones that made these contracts, and here's why we think they can work. I think that they have to seriously consider restructuring, figuring out how to sell off guys like UC Soros, maybe even guys like Brady Shea, Jonathan Marchessault, the big contracts that are just completely weighing you down, and say, look, like, how would you fix this? What would you do to solve this situation, first of all, and then what's your plan for the future? Because that's what the big problem is. Their contract situation is a mess with all the heavy duty, price tags, and also the no trade clauses and everything. If the question is to the applicant, how would you fix this? The internal candidates are at a disadvantage, right? So I would definitely consider looking elsewhere. The idea of hiring a former GM, I think, really is appealing to me. I think you've already seen what happens when you tap a non-former GM for the job. I mean, Barry Trotz was not a GM, and he came in, and there's a lot of misses. There's a lot of missteps there. So I think you at least need someone who's been in a front office before for a number of years. And the names that I think Elliot Friedman threw out there, Brendan Shanahan and Mark Bergevin, I don't think either one are bad options. I think those are good options. But I almost think you might even want someone who's younger, who is maybe has even newer ideas. I mean, Bergevin's been around for a long time, and so is Shanahan. But they are they built for the new NHL? I don't know. Are they prepared to go find the young center, the young player that this team needs? Are they prepared to manage the salary cap in a very different NHL than it was 10 years ago? I don't know. So I think you need someone with a GM experience, or at least front office experience. I do think that it would be an external hire. If I was guessing, they go after someone who's an assistant GM right now. There's a lot of names out there. I couldn't even begin to list them off. I did publish something this morning on some candidates. I got to be honest, some of these names I didn't even know prior to looking into this. So if I told you Brandon Pridham with the Toronto Maple Leafs, I don't think that's going to move any needles because people don't know who that is. But there's a lot of names like that out there. Evan Gold with the Boston Bruins. He's been an assistant GM there for a while. They've done some good things. But is that a person that Nashville's going to know? Certainly not. That's like the definition of an outside hire. Who's this guy? There's also the possibility of what if they just go hire some, healthcare CEO or some AI guru who's like, I know how to fix things. I mean, that I think would be a mistake, obviously, but
Radio host?
I don't think there's what's that?
Radio host? Sports writer?
Yeah.
Radio host, exactly. I know there's a lot of those that want the job. Yeah, Joe, you'd be up for that job, right?
Sure, man.
Draft
Draft forwards.
There's got to be a possibility of that too, right? Just look external, see what possibilities are out there. But I just think they've got a real opportunity to freshen everything up, to really change things. I think they need to take it.
It'll be further, complicating the job when apparently they're down 7-1 against the Colorado Avalanche in the first round. They come back and just win every game. That's just barely what they're going to do now. They come back all the time. So we'll see what happens. Alex, it's going to be very fascinating to see how this plays out. A very stunning day yesterday for the Nashville Predators. Thank you for being with us this morning. We will talk to you soon, my friend, and have fun with the GM search.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. I appreciate it. Thanks, bye.
Feel better.
Thank you, Alex. Alex Doherty from the Tennessee and our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. We will react to what Alex had to say, the Rob rant coming up next as well. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game.
Don't make me angry.
Sometimes you have to tell someone to pound sand.
You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
This is the Rob Rant. Now on Robby and Rexrode.
They think you're some buffoon.
She does not disrobe anywhere near me.
Take off your robe.
But I've also been flashed.
Catch one stray pee-pee and
She's completely dressed.
You want to be in the all 22, Robert?
Drop trowel. I'm going to stick this in your ass.
Titans need to get some grass.
I smoke weed constantly.
Way too many conversations about Diego Pavia's mom.
Hey, can we go get mama, please?
We're vibing, Robby.
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rob Rant here on Robby and Rexrode. It was a nice pull for me in there at the time. I had to tell my toddler to get out of the room while doing live radio. Can you please go get mom? Thank you. A lot of reaction to Alex Doherty's interview there. A lot of your thoughts on the Predators. So Joe, we'll just build on that. You know, I talked about this earlier. I think this is an opportunity here to go outside the organization, bring in some fresh ideas, and get a new look on things here. You know, the general manager job has never been open before. It was David Poile forever. Then it was handed off to Barry Trotz, and this is the first time it's really been open. So does that mean that you have to go hire an external candidate? No. Like if you're looking around and you get through your process and you feel like Scott Nickel or Jeff Kelty or Brian Poile are the best people for the job, then you go hire them. Like that's what you do. I have a tough time believing that opening this thing up to as many people as I think are going to be involved with this in the interview process, and as Alex just mentioned, the former general managers who have done the job before, and some up and coming names in the NHL that I think everybody agrees are going to be general managers at some point. Like, I got a tough time believing that the best person for the job is going to end up being internal, but we'll see at that point. You know, the Predators have been a successful franchise, right? Like they've been competitive for the most part. You know, after you got through the early expansion years, they've been basically a playoff team ever since then. They missed it a year or two here or there, but they've been in the playoffs. They've also only been past the second round of the playoffs one time. And there's some issues with drafting, developing forwards that have been a consistent thing here. And I just feel like you've got an opportunity here, whether it's Brendan Shanahan or Mark Bergevin or some guy that you identify in this process that's never been a general manager before, but you feel like is on the verge of becoming one of the next great minds in this game. I am very fascinated to see how the Predators handle this. And I know that if they ended up hiring Kelty, Nickel, Poile, it ain't going to go over well with the fan base. And again, you can't make your decisions by, what the fans are going to react to and what they're not. But I'm just telling you, it will not go well with the fan base if that's the way that things play out here.
No, it won't. I don't think it will go well with media either if you want to separate media and fans. And I think it makes sense to go outside. That's not why you do it. But I think the reason you do it is, again, you do it to freshen things up and to just
different approach.
Yeah, just to bring in some new ideas and look, like there is something to me. I think there's something that has to be fixed. You respect the consistency for sure. You respect the ability to stay competitive, and obviously this franchise has been tremendous at identifying defensemen and goalies, and they've been very bad at identifying forwards. Like I'm sure if you went on a deep dive with some of these guys, they could go through a lot of things, or maybe someone that they were just going to pick that they just missed out on, or whatever it is. The bottom line is that's a pretty long sample size, a pretty huge sample size of that weakness, and it has cost them. And so, yes, some teams, of course, hit the lottery in the perfect year, and Chicago happens to get the number one pick. I mean, you can't account for not having lottery luck, but over that time, you got to have more forwards to show than what they have, way more than what they have. And so that, to me, is like without blaming an individual person for that. I mean, I guess you could point to Poile more than anything, but still, like, there's a lot of people, a lot of moving parts, a lot of people involved in it. Bottom line is, the whole operation has failed at that over a long, long period of time. And so you do need to fix it. You need to have something better. at that incredibly important aspect of building a hockey team.
Well, and it is like what you do now with the, we've talked in the show today about the pipeline, and they've got some intriguing prospects that may have a chance to end up being pretty good. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we could be talking 5 years from now. Brady Martin may be one of the best players in the league. I have no idea. Like that very well could happen. So you leave the room for that. I think there's some attractiveness to the job out there when you look at their prospect pool and how deep it is with some of the talent that they've got. I think what Alex just touched on too, what do you do to start? Like, how do you get the ball rolling in terms of you're still waiting on a lot of these guys to come up and be the part of that next core? What do you do with the core that's already here? Like, what happens with UC Saros? What happens with Philip Forsberg? When you're bringing in somebody from the outside, you got a fresh look on things. How much tinkering do they want to do with the roster that's already here? How much can you do? I mean, a lot of the guys we're talking about,
the question.
Either you look at their contract and you say, who's taking that contract on? Or they've got trade protection. Now, it's not like trade protection is some insurmountable thing. Ryan McDonough had trade protection in Tampa Bay and ended up on the Nashville Predators. So, like, it happens in the league. But, that's going to be, I think, in the short term, probably the most interesting part of this is when they make that next hire, regardless of who it is, how much do they do to this current roster right now? And I'm talking beyond this year's trade deadline.
Yeah, it's a great question. I do think the biggest question is what can you do, but I think you want to do quite a bit and kind of whatever. I don't know if is it take it down to the studs and just do the absolute full on rebuild. I don't know, but I mean we're getting there. Like Forsberg's got good years left. But, we're getting there with some of these other guys, obviously, and then, of course, the goalie situation is tricky for sure. And I just don't know. I mean, I think some of the strategies based on the situation they're in, the strategy is hope, right? Like you're going to be relegated to that. But I think you're definitely going to see some people moved.
Keith says we need to say goodbye to the days of accepting Colin Wilson and Craig Smith as our best players. Two guys that were important Predators, by the way.
Playoff Colin Wilson. Don't rip on playoff Colin Wilson.
Also, I would say their best players now are significantly better than Colin Wilson and Craig Smith.
Yes.
And at the time, they were too. They had Shea Weber and, Roman Josi.
Right. They had a hell of a decor.
They did.
Back then. Goalie, too. Scott from Shelbyville says, one thing you'll be certain if you go outside the organization, transparency we've enjoyed will be a thing of the past. Probably much less than we have interaction, like interviews, et cetera, much harder for the media to cover the team. Yeah, maybe. I mean, you can't get much more kind and open and transparent than like Barry Trotz and David Poyle. Yeah. So I guess from that perspective, sure. But
I mean, they did just have the owner of the franchise get up there in front of the microphone yesterday. It's like, yeah, one of the reasons we're doing this is we want to be as transparent as possible. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm not really worried about that part of it.
Yeah. In hockey, I think you have a lot more transparency than, say, the NFL.
Well, and then,
you need to.
Most of these guys that are going to be under consideration for the job, like they understand how the media works too. Like,
right.
And some of them are, I mean, they're not, none of those guys, I can go and tell you, whether it's Shanahan or Mark Bergevin, they're not going to be Barry Trotz. I think we all have to understand
Let
that.
me tell you my life story right now. Again.
Yeah. Like, I think we all understand that part of it heading into it. 615-737.
But thanks for thinking of media, Scott.
Our phone number. Yeah, appreciate it. We will get back into Barry Trotz and all this in the 8 o'clock hour. We are going to take a quick hockey breather. The Titans did make a hire yesterday. We will get into that. And there is some news this morning on the Hall of Fame front that is making the rounds as well. We'll get into all that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you. Broadcasting from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. We will get back into Barry Trotz stepping down as Predators general manager coming up here in just a few minutes. We are going to take a quick hockey breather. Joe, some NFL things to get to. Number one, the Titans did hire a coordinator yesterday, so I feel like that's a pretty big deal. Titans hired Gus Bradley as their defensive coordinator. So Gus Bradley is in the saddle. So you have Brian Dable as the offensive coordinator, Robert Saleh head coach, Gus Bradley defensive coordinator. Now, as we know, Saleh will be the one calling the plays on the defensive side of things. So that's probably why the defensive coordinator hire has a little bit less sizzle than what we're typically accustomed to. Gus Bradley has head coaching experience in this league. He was most recently the assistant head coach on defense with the San Francisco 49ers, and he worked with Robert Saleh. So some continuity there. You're bringing over a guy that you just worked with in San Francisco to help you on the defensive side of the ball. Another bald man joining the coaching staff there, which you love to see.
No doubt,
You love to see it. What do we think of Gus Bradley as the defensive coordinator of the Tennessee Titans, who, by the way, defensive coordinator kind of in the early stages of the Legion of Boom back there in the day with Seattle. He was the head coach in Jacksonville from 2013 to 2016. So a lot of head coaching, or a lot of coaching experience in general on this staff.
Yeah, he was. What he did with the Seahawks D got him that Jags. So he wasn't around with the Seahawks when they actually won it all, and should have won it all. God. But I forgot that he was actually still the Jags coach when the Titans went down there and Marcus Mariota broke his leg and they blew the division in 2016. I forgot that he was still the coach then, but he got fired right after that season and then goes back into the DC pool, Chargers, Raiders, Colts. So it's a totally not surprising hire. Seems to make sense. Experience, continuity, relationship. You know, if you're him, I guess if you're Gus Bradley, are you now are you basically like I'm a D coordinator? That's what I am. You know, probably. Yeah. You know, he's 59. He's been successful there. He had one unsuccessful stint as a head coach. Interesting too, though. Obviously, not calling plays.
Yep.
But I guess that was also the situation last year in San Francisco. So for their purposes, it's pretty similar, I guess. Just basically take the operation from there to here.
Sounds like it.
I guess technically it's a step up for him. He's technically defensive coordinator here now, right?
Yeah.
Gus Bradley, as opposed to assistant
head coach of defense.
Head coach of defense. Yeah, some of the titles they come up with are just
we're getting
amazing.
A little wild with the titles now in the NFL.
Blame the agents.
Yeah.
Blame the agents.
I'm the assistant to the assistant of the guy who throws the football on the practice field. It's awesome. Great.
My favorite is run game coordinator on defense.
Yeah.
So you're wait a minute, your run game. Oh,
we defend the run.
You're coordinating stopping the other run game.
Yes.
Cool.
A lot of coaching staffs continue to get bigger and bigger out there.
Yeah.
See how it goes.
With bigger and bigger titles. But it's an experienced staff and a lot of, as you'd expect, a lot of people who have background together. And so it seems I'm not at all surprised. Basically the question with him was just is he going to get another defensive coordinator job somewhere else? Does he want a defensive coordinator job where he's calling defensive plays? Because that's not this. But then again, you know how these things go. I think especially with defensive, I think it's way easier too for the defensive play calling coach to be you take it.
I agree.
It's a big deal if you change, the offensive play calling, but not as much with defensive. So he wouldn't be surprised if at some point here he's calling defensive plays.
Robert Kraft, New England Patriots owner, is not selected into this year's Pro Football Hall of Fame class. So we talked last week, Joe, about Bill Belichick and not making it as a first ballot Hall of Famer. Robert Kraft has also not been selected for entry into this year's Pro Football Hall of Fame class. Adam Schefter had that earlier today. So I think we're going to find out later this week. I think Thursday is when we'll officially find out what the Hall of Fame class looks like for this year, but no Belichick and no Robert Kraft. We know that much, at least at this point. So your reaction to Robert Kraft joining Bill Belichick, being on the outside looking in of the Pro Football Hall of Fame at the moment.
Well, then I'm fully expecting Tom Brady to not get on his first shot. Right? Like, I mean, I guess the Patriots.
I will come unglued. But
some of the missteps, some of the cheating of the Patriots, maybe coming back to bite them now with Kraft. So visited places and whatever. Yeah, I don't need to get into it. But yeah, Ian's like shaking his head furiously. I mean, I don't know. Like do people not like Robert Kraft? Yeah,
Vrabel seems to like
personal conduct, part of this thing. Yeah, Vrabel does like him.
Wins a lot as an owner.
He does. Yeah, he does. I still believe, and this is cheating too, but I respect it that he socked away an island for Tom Brady somewhere during all those years. I still believe that.
All the discounts he took.
Yeah. Robert Kraft, they gave him something. So this one won't create the same shockwaves as Belichick last week, but I'm serious. Tom Brady better not get first ballot now.
I guess when you think about it, Brady really didn't have to take the discount. Robert Kraft's just like, hey, I'm not going to give you you take like $60 million less, and then one day you just go work for Fox and they'll pay you $300 million. It'll all even out at that point.
That's true. Yeah, you can do that, and you can run the Raiders somehow.
Sure,
and the league will let you do it
and clone yourself.
Yeah, that too. Drink all the
how many clone dogs
avocado
tequila
you want?
Like, did Robert Kraft clone any dogs too? Like, has Brady kept this information to himself, or has he shared it with his friends? Do we know?
Who knows? I mean, Kraft probably funded all that stuff.
Probably did.
That's
what I'm saying. Like, you take that discount, but then I think Brady's come out ahead in the aggregate.
I think so too. So I guess you could look at it like, hey, you kept your star happy. And so either Brady's not getting in on his first ballot because everybody's like there were cheaters and they need to pay for it, or it's just that everybody thinks that it was all Brady and no anyone else. And so
I think
they are the ones who must pay for the cheating, even though Deflategate did happen. Tom Brady cheated, but that's okay.
I'm here to tell you, Tom Brady is getting in unanimously. First ballot Hall of Famer.
Unanimously. I'll bet you.
I would agree.
I'll bet you.
It's going to happen unanimously.
I mean, I agree he'll get in. I will bet you that there's a straggler or two.
Kowarski.
Yeah, maybe I'll bet you, and I'll split the profits after I bribe Kowarski into being that guy. Who knows?
Hey, Paul, need you to not vote for Brady, please. Thank you.
What's it going to take, Paul?
I'll take that bet.
Okay.
I don't know what's the bet. We'll find out. When's he eligible? Is it 2 years from now?
Yeah, 2 or 3, right?
Yeah.
Couple three
Sounds
years from now.
right. Yeah, 2 probably.
I thought they just should have, when he retired, gone ahead and just put him in.
Sure.
Apparently, people don't like that.
Yeah, I mean, change the rules for him. He doesn't care about rules anyway.
Here we go.
Apparently, by the way, this is apparently did this question get asked of Vrabel yesterday? Speaking of Vrabel. About the thing that he said on Bussin' with the Boys. Apparently, he has retracted that promise.
Well, somebody did ask him yesterday. I didn't see. Look, it was a busy day with the Predators yesterday. I didn't see a whole lot, from Super Bowl media day.
Yeah,
but apparently somebody did ask Vrabel. Mike, would you consider like the Super Bowl here? I know you guys are about to play in it. Is that a must-win game?
So the person was trolling him.
I guess.
I
didn't see who it was. I just heard like the faint audio clip on press route last night.
Did Vrabel display the human ability to laugh at something he got mad about it?
No, he just the way we kind of approach them is they're all must win. That's kind of how things work in professional sports. You try to win every game.
Have some fun, Vrabel.
I have long thought that the media day Super Bowl setting with all the nonsense that goes on in there, not tailor made for Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, I mean,
tailor made for like Jim Harbaugh. Yeah, John Harbaugh. Sure. Mike Vrabel. No.
Yeah, it's a lot of people just trying to draw attention to themselves. But I do appreciate that someone asked him about cutting off an important appendage, and apparently he's not going to do it. I mean, that was a question that needed to be asked.
Well, of the questions that get asked there, that's probably not the most ridiculous one. That's good.
I promise you there were dumber ones.
Oh, yeah. 615-737-1025, our phone number. We will get back into Barry Trotz stepping down as general manager of the Nashville Predators coming up next. A lot of your thoughts on that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Take your thoughts at 615-737-1025. Barry Trotz stepping down as Predators general manager, and they will conduct a search. Bill Haslam, Sean Henry, Barry Trotz had the press conference yesterday. We mentioned to begin the show, pretty wild day for the Predators yesterday. You had the Barry Trotz stuff come out in the morning, and that news broke. Apparently, the players and Andrew Burnett found out about it just about the same time as everybody else did when Elliot Friedman broke the story. So kind of a different morning for them yesterday, getting ready for the game. You get to the game against St. Louis last night. They're down 5-1 and looking like just trash. I mean, look, they looked awful in the second period specifically of that game last night. They were down 5-1. They pulled UC Saros like directly after they pulled UC Saros. St. Louis had a couple of good looks where they could have made it 6-1. And Onanen came up with a couple of big saves there. And then all of a sudden, Joe, like Michael McCarron just gets a nice redirection from the middle of the ice, makes it 5-2. Forsberg makes a great play. It comes in, executes a shot where he had basically the size of a coffee cup to put it above the glove of Hofer in net for St. Louis. He executes the shot. It's 5-3. They got all the momentum to close out the second period. And then they totally dominated in the third. They came back, they got the lead, and then just suffocated St. Louis after that. They win 6-5. So a day that starts with your general manager announcing his retirement or his intended retirement, and then you come back from a 5-1 deficit and win the game last night in an environment at Bridgestone Arena that was as raucous as I can remember it in a while. So
what a day. What a day. Jinx. Yeah, that's crazy. And it's like you get the visions of the Titans-Jags game in 2022, right after the firing of John Rounds. A very different situation, but it's like, man, they had no business losing to that terrible Jags team, which ends up winning the division. And so the Preds, what an emotional day. You could kind of understand some poor performance when like the world kind of comes at you sideways like that. But then the goalie is out. You come with the backup and all of a sudden an incredible comeback.
It was a wild game last night. It really was. Like it was one of those games that I think if you were in attendance, you'll remember that one for a long time. And look, you go to enough hockey games, they all run together at some point, and there are, just a few that kind of stick out. You'll remember that one if you were there last night. That was a crazy game. And now it's all about what happens from here, right? Barry Trotz is going to stay on as general manager until they find his replacement. So, I mean, Joe, that could be, I guess, over the Olympic break. That could be into the offseason, which is probably the more likely scenario. But Bill Haslam did say yesterday that he wants to have a new general manager in place, certainly before the draft comes about next year. And he said they're not limited by that, and that's part of the benefit of having Trotz stay on the way that he is right now. But that would be the goal, is for them to have a new general manager in place by the time the draft comes around. And we've been kicking this back and forth. I mean, we've talked a lot today about, the legacy of Barry Trotz and what he's meant to the franchise. And obviously, to this point, what he's done as general manager has not gone to plan. We've also said, I mean, look, how good's Riker Lee going to be? How good's Brady Martin going to be? How good's Tanner Molendijk going to be? Matthew Wood? I mean, there's a lot that I think will still determine how we view Barry Trotz's tenure that will come down the road here. But also, where are the Predators going now? Like, they've talked about the search, and they've got all this committee going on with CAA, and Michelle Kennedy's going to be in there, Sean Henry's going to be in there, Barry Trotz, Bill Haslam, Nick Saban, Chris Sigaran. Like, they've got an extensive search that they're about to embark on here. And what happens from here in terms of the job, who gets hired, how much interest is there in the job? It's a turning point for the franchise, and this is kind of out of nowhere, but this is a big moment for the franchise of whatever the next hire is at general manager. You got to get it right, and it's a big moment for them.
Yeah, and it's them. I think we'll see. They may hire internally, but I think it's them stepping. I don't want to say into like the modern NHL, but I think they're going to be more like a traditional NHL franchise moving forward. You now have. You have, again, because you had the ownership group for a long time, it was kind of, different people. I mean, Tom Sigaran was a voice for a long time, but it's different, I think, with Bill Haslam as a majority owner. And then also you're going to have, you're going to go out and you're going to break free from basically what's kind of been in place, some elements, the entire existence of the franchise. If you do hire externally, Nate and some others have asked the question about why would Trotz be? It is kind of interesting, right? Why would Trotz be involved in this? And by the way, Trotz being involved in this, like for people, and there isn't much of that today, but like if you think that like the Preds fired him and then like he decided to be their puppet at the press conference yesterday, and then now he's also helping with this, like that's kind of should tell you they didn't fire him. But I think it's a fair question. Like should he be involved in this process?
Well, it's a fair question. I wonder, like when push comes to shove, like is Barry Trotz going to be the one naming the next general manager, or is it going to be Bill Haslam? Right? Like Bill Haslam. I mean, Bill Haslam said it yesterday. He is leading the search. That's the term he used. So, does it make sense to have some input for Barry Trotz? I could see an argument where it does. Does it make sense? I mean, they're having all these different people look at it. They've got CAA kind of running it for them, which is an agency. And like I said, I mean, they're going to filter out some candidates. They're going to bring some names to the Predators. I'm sure there are people that are CAA clients that are going to be interested in the job that you can set things up with that way. So it's going to be a pretty exhaustive, I hate to use this term, collaborative approach that they're going to do here. But like ultimately the read I get on it is, I mean, there's all these people that are going to weigh in, but Bill Haslam's going to be the one that ultimately makes the decision.
Yeah. And the thing, first of all, with Trotz, and I think this goes to his legacy, like no one should have any doubts at all about like the fact that he cares about this organization, right? Sure. Like his did not go well as GM, did not go as well as hoped, did not go as planned as GM. It doesn't, I mean, it comes, if you put it on a scale, it's completely overwhelmed by all the years that he did what he did here as a coach and things like that. And he does care. And so I don't think it's a bad thing. Again, it's a fair question, but to me, he's an expert on this league. And he's still actually, to me, when he's hired, yes, he is a GM now. So you think about it in terms of, wow, the last GM helping hire the GM. But to me, he's still the eyes of a coach that are in that process, right? That's still his perspective. And he has a pretty good perspective on working with different GMs and what works and what doesn't. Yeah, he didn't make all the right moves. There's no doubt about that. But I still think that there's a lot of expertise there that if he's willing to lend it, go ahead and use it.
Well, and in all seriousness, like how involved is Saban going to be in this thing? Like, Saban doesn't like, does Nick Saban need to be the one picking the next hockey GM?
I would rather Barry Trotz's input than Nick Saban. I mean, all due respect.
Well, but I guess that's my point though. Like Saban's going to be on the search committee. Do I think that Nick Saban is going to be like, guys, I think Brendan Shanahan's probably the right guy for the job? No, like I don't know that he's going to be making those determinations. But one thing that they've talked about, and they talked about at his press conference a few weeks ago, and that Haslam mentioned again yesterday, Saban does have his process that he has gone through over the years and identifying like the right people and like how to run an organization. So I don't think Bill Haslam is going to be sitting there and be like, so Nick, you pick the coach or you pick the GM and we'll just go with it. And that's going to be the way it goes. But I think like you do all of these things together and then ultimately Haslam's going to have to be the one that makes the decision. Like I think you factor in all these things.
And Saban, I mean, if and when the next time they hire a coach, whenever that may be, maybe again, the GM they hire has someone or whatever, but I would like Saban's input a little bit more on the coaching aspect of it, right, than the GM aspect. This is a good question by Dennis. How does Trotz, knowing he's leaving, influence what he does at the deadline? Does it make him more likely to pull the trigger on trades? He's just going to go, or what if he goes out there and just say, let's load up for the playoff run, baby?
I don't think that's
I'm still the GM.
I don't think that's going to happen. It is a fair question of knowing that I would assume, and at some point here in the next few months, going to transfer from general manager to an advisory role for the last year of your contract. Does that affect the way that you view the trading deadline? I mean, he said yesterday that it's not going to, and I think part of why Bill Haslam feels comfortable in this is that he genuinely believes that Barry Trotz will do what he thinks is best for the franchise here. Now, at that point, then it comes down to, all right, well, what does he think is best for the franchise? And do you agree with that if you're a Predators fan? Like if he says, if they get to the trade deadline here in a few weeks and they're 2 points out of a playoff spot and he just says, I'm not doing anything. I'm not going to touch anything on this roster. Well, that may be what he thinks is best for the franchise. Do you agree with that if you're a Predators fan, right? I mean, that's what it's going to come down to.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. Saban could always jump in there too. Just make his own renegade trade for trade O'Reilly away. Barry Trotz finds out about it 8 a.m. the next day.
I did turn around at one point yesterday and I was like, I wonder if he's here. I looked around. I didn't see him. So I don't think Saban was there yesterday.
Well,
could have been hanging out in the back. I have no idea, but I didn't see him.
Might be going through candidates right now. He might have been going through the paperwork.
You guys go down there and handle the press conference. I got some work to do up here.
Grinding on some film.
615-737-1025, our phone number. A lot of your reaction to get to on Barry Trotz stepping down. Why now for Barry Trotz? What's the plan for the Predators moving forward? We'll continue to discuss all of that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Barry Trotz stepping down as Predators general manager. Taking your thoughts on all that. A lot of people have been asking the question throughout the show. We've addressed it a couple of times, but we'll continue to address it because it's a good question. What does this all mean for Brunette? Right, with Barry Trotz stepping down, with Brunette looking like it's at the end of last season and how the early part of this year went, that he was basically dead man walking as coach, and then for them to hang on to him, Barry Trotz stuck with him. And then they pulled themselves out of the abyss, and they've at least made it interesting down the stretch here in terms of their push for the playoffs. Now, as Barry Trotz pointed out yesterday, going back to the discussion we just had of doing what's best for the franchise, right now they're not in a playoff spot. They are closer. I think they're 3 points out after last night's games. So, but they have been anywhere from 2 points to, I think at one point they were 1 point out, 6 points. Like they've kind of been in that neighborhood now for a while of right there in the mix with some of these other teams. And, Utah won last night, and that's not a result that was good for the Predators. So they're right there with Utah and Anaheim and LA and San Jose right there in that mix for those final 2 wildcard spots. So the Predators, to their credit, have gone from being the worst team in the league to dragging themselves into the fight. And I think the players deserve credit for that. Obviously, Steven Stamkos has taken off. Roman Josi, I think, has 20 points in his last 11 games. Like, he's playing really good hockey right now. Players deserve a lot of credit for that. Andrew Brunette deserves a lot of credit for that. He took a lot of crap, and I understood it. Like, if you were a Predators fan that at the time was out on Andrew Brunette, I couldn't argue with you there. There's a lot of places, I think most places in this league, where had the situation played out the way that it did last year and the way that things started this year, he'd have been fired. So I think that that's a fact. But he's done a good job ever since then, and I think it is spoken well of him and his staff of what they've been able to do here. But now you're talking about a new general manager coming in, and typically when that happens, Joe, that normally doesn't spell good news for the coach that's already there.
Yeah, and look, let's say this never happened. We'd be talking about Andrew Brunette and his job, and
sure.
What's the direction overall? What is Trotz going to do? And then is Brunette coming back? He has acquitted himself extremely well, I think, through all this. Kept plugging away, kept working, got them. Look, the team has turned things around, obviously dramatically. You got the concerns, kind of consistent concerns about slow starts and needing to have these kinds of comebacks and everything, and different. Not exactly the same pattern, but somewhat similar. But I think he's really done a good job and deserves a lot of credit for it and respect for it, which is potentially good for him if he is out there on the market, for his next job. I'm assuming they're hiring outside, and if they're hiring outside, I'm assuming that the GM is going to either, if the GM doesn't have, his guy, I still would think that there'd be a pretty strong sentiment to start over at coach, but it doesn't guarantee it. I don't know that for sure. They could go hire someone outside, and let's see how this season ends too, and see where things go from here. Brunette has impressed, and it's possible that a new GM could want to retain him.
Yeah, some of that's going to be determined by how this finishes off too, right? Like, do they make the playoffs? Do they make things interesting in their first round matchup if they get there? Do they totally fizzle out down the stretch here? Does Barry Trotz decide that he's going to start selling some guys off, and all of a sudden Ryan O'Reilly's playing for who knows who in the Eastern Conference, or Michael Bunting's gone and Eric Hall is gone? Like, all those things are going to, I think, factor into this. Conventional wisdom says if you make a general manager hire, particularly one that is not associated with Andrew Brunette in any way, that probably means that general manager, if they follow trends in the NHL, is going to hire their own guy. Doesn't guarantee that, but I can't imagine that Andrew Brunette looked at the situation yesterday and said, "Oh, great, this is good news for me." Like, I don't imagine that was part of his thought process yesterday.
No. Not after the shock, then that's probably the next thing. Like, oh, that's not good. But again, he also, that's how this league goes too. Again, he would have known at the end of this year, unless it was an incredible finish, that it'd still be
up for discussion.
It'd be up for discussion for sure.
Yeah.
It's not a very, it's a mediocre hockey team. So again, I mean, I think you could argue now, obviously, how has this turnaround happened with some of these players who have been great players playing like great players again? You know, it's like they still got it. You know, they still some of these guys still have the fastball, but it's still, to me, you could make the case that he has done more with less this year.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think they've done a really good job of pulling themselves back in the race. I think in this whole discussion, part of what the general manager that they hire is going to have to determine is, while you're waiting on these young guys that we've talked about, what's real and what's not real right now. Like Steven Stamkos, like if Steven Stamkos had been playing this way from the start of the season, he'd end up with 50 goals this year.
Yeah.
Like he's playing really well. And he's already at 27, which, by the way, is what he had last year. So he's already gotten to his goal total from last year, which I think included 4 goals in the first 22 games this year. So he's just been on a torrid pace ever since then.
I think it's 23 of 33.
Yeah. So
23 goals,
33 games. I mean, it's just a torrid pace that he's on right now. So is that what he is? Like, have they figured something out with him, or has he figured something out with the way that he's having to play right now? Where next year you're looking at him at age 36 and he's going to put up 35 goals. Like, is that what he is? Or are you going to look at it and say, well, he's 36 next year? And you're going to, I think we expected, one of the things we talked about when they signed all these guys was, okay, well, Stamkos, at the time you signed him, I think he was about to be 34. Marchessault was 33. O'Reilly was 33. Like, you're getting all in there together, and you kind of felt like the next 2 years are when you're going to have to do it with that group.
Yeah.
Well, the 2 years are going to be up after this, and then you start to move into, the 36, 37 aged season. So part of what your job is going to be as the next general manager is, all right, well, what is Steven Stamkos moving forward here? What is if O'Reilly's still on the roster and you don't trade him at the deadline? Is he next year what he is right now? Like, is that what he's going to be, or do you sell high in the offseason on him? Marchessault just doesn't feel like he's fitting in here. And I don't know if that's a personality thing or it's just luck of the draw of how things have gone. I know injuries have been a problem for him this year, but it's not going well for Marchessault. Brady Shea looks like he's starting to play a little bit better, and I would put Brady Shea in the category of that's a contract that's going to be very difficult to get rid of based on the length and the term and the amount of dollars. So all these things you got to figure out how to navigate if you're that next general manager.
Yeah, and then philosophically, last time we had Alex Doherty on, he said he did not think that Trotz was going to move O'Reilly because the young guys coming up, who's setting the culture, who's setting the example. There are other veterans, there's a captain, but still, O'Reilly is obviously a different breed when it comes to like work ethic, all that stuff. So does the next GM value that enough? Do they move him this year? But then if not, does the next GM value that enough to say, you know what, like that's just you have to have some of that to help the younger guys grow. I mean, I have no idea, but that's definitely how Trotz looked at it. But again, Trotz looked at things kind of like a coach, right? In some ways.
Final thoughts on Barry Trotz's decision to step down as Predators general manager. We'll take more of your thoughts at 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Final segment of the day, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Joe, people asking, how does Trotz's tenure as a general manager, which has been short to this point, how does that affect his legacy when it comes to his standing with the franchise, how he's viewed by fans, all of those things? I'll let you take the first crack at that. How do you think when this is all said and done here, whether it's here in a few weeks, whether it drags into the offseason, by the time they make their next general manager hire, how do you view the legacy of Barry Trotz with the Nashville Predators?
Well, Barry Trotz is one of the most revered figures in franchise history, and I would argue in Nashville sports history, right? I mean, I think it's pretty simple, and this did not change that. I suppose if he had an extremely long, or longer than this for sure, GM tenure, and it went really bad, then it'd still be like, well, still love Barry, because first of all, it's very hard for people to dislike Barry Trotz who get to know him at all, just like David Poile. But also, it still doesn't change what he did as a coach. And he went from here, and he cemented himself as one of the best coaches the league has seen. But yeah, I think he's one of the. I mean, I hate to do the. This is a great talk radio. Mount Rushmore of Nashville Predators. Now, if you did a Mount Rushmore of Nashville Predators, you probably don't have dudes in suits. But if you did, then I think you'd have Trotz. You'd probably have Trotz, Rene, Yossi, and
Poile.
You Poile? So are you going to do two of the four going to be suits? I think you got to have three players in a suit, man.
Well, then it would probably be Poile over Trotz.
You think so?
Yeah. I mean, Poile was the architect of the team that got the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, but don't people like coaches more?
Sure. Yeah.
Coaches are still more connected to fans, right?
I mean, I guess. I mean, when the general manager's been here for 25 years, maybe that changes a little bit.
That's actually a really interesting. It's too bad the show's over. Question of the day. Anyone? Like if you had one spot reserved for a suit on the Nashville Predators Mount Rushmore, is it Poile or is it Trotz? I vote Trotz.
I think it would be Poile.
Weigh in, folks. We have a couple minutes left. Jake Lyman, I look forward to your answer. He's waiting patiently. I think that's a good question. You think it's a no-brainer?
I'm not necessarily saying no-brainer. I just think Poile was almost primarily responsible for the best years that they had.
Yeah,
Trotz was not there for those.
He was not there for those. That's true. He did develop a lot of those guys.
He did.
Yeah, Yossi on his watch. Some of those other guys, right? Ryan Ellis.
He had nothing to do with Ryan Johansson. He had nothing to do with PK Subban. He basically had nothing to do with Matthias Ekholm.
Shea Weber, who they traded.
That's
for
true.
That's on Barry Trotz. What's your answer, Ian? And by the way, who's the third player?
It's the three greatest players in franchise history without question are Yossi, Shea Weber, and Pekka Rinne.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, of course, Shea, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so who's your suit?
I think the more important would be Poile, but I think the more popular is Trotz.
I can see that.
What's your choice?
Yeah.
If I had to choose, I think I would go with Poile.
Yeah.
Just as like the foundation as the long term.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Probably.
I'll sit here on Trotz Island.
I mean, I'm not trying
I personally respect Barry Trotz, unlike other people on this program.
You're making it sound like I'm trying to take shots at Trotzy. I'm not.
Shots at Trotz.
Yeah.
On his way out.
No.
Put him in the dunking booth.
I mean, there's no doubt Trotz did a great job his first tenure as coach here.
Sure.
Especially early on. Those teams.
Well, look, he's a Hall of Famer, right? Like he's going to be a Hall of Famer. He won a Stanley Cup. I think he's fourth or fifth in the history of the league of games won as a head coach. Like he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. So, you're talking about a Hall of Fame guy that a large part of your resume, not all of it, but a large part of your resume is here. Now, I think part of what definitely cements him in the Hall of Fame is the combination of the wins he had as a head coach and the Stanley Cup that he won in Washington, right? Like that's a big part of it. But, you're talking about now, this is his third season as general manager. It's not a long enough tenure to really, I think, totally affect the legacy. And as I said earlier, if 5 or 6 years from now, you're looking up and it's like, wow, if you list out the top 10 players in the league, you get to like number 7 and Brady Martin's on there. Like that, to me, that's a big deal when it comes to this too. So that adds to it as well. But I mean, there's no doubt from a wins and losses perspective as general manager, it did not go the way that people hoped it went. Especially, I think people, when he first took the job, prepared themselves for some level of a rebuild. And then, frankly, they probably had too much success too early, and that changed everybody's expectations, I think, including his. And he went out there and he signed Stamkos and he signed Marchessault and he signed Shea, and everybody said, well, look at Barry Trotz. They've come in, and within 2 years, they're back to being a Stanley Cup contender, and then it was a total disaster last year. So everything's kind of been derailed since then. But to your point, Joe, like I just don't. It hadn't been a long enough tenure to like overly affect his legacy here in Nashville. I don't think.
No, it's secure. Yeah, the one thing that about all this that we won't know the answer, but what if things did go differently? Like, would we be talking about this right now? I have no idea. As Alex Doherty said earlier, I mean, and they said yesterday, I mean, he told them it'd be a one contract thing. I still think that there's a pretty good chance that you keep going if it's going well. But but I don't know. That's the one answer here that we don't really have. The hypothetical. What if? What if you change things? Would it? But other than that, again, the guy obviously went to them and told them that he wanted to do this, and he's helping them, and he sat there with them and answered all the questions yesterday. And so that should remove any doubt.
Well, and look, it's a time of obviously flux here for the organization. They're about to embark on a territory that they've never been in before. I mean, I've said it multiple times that the general manager job is now open for the first time. And the first time since they've become a franchise, the general manager job is open, which is insane to think about when you're talking about, knocking on the doorstep of 30 years as an NHL franchise. But like to me, Joe, this has been a process here for the last couple of years of Bill Haslam coming into the fold. This is now to me kind of like the hard launch of the Bill Haslam area. You're as an owner going through a process now of making a critical hire for your organization. And regardless of how you get there with the search firm and all the people that are weighing in, all these things, whoever this next hire is, people are going to view that as Bill Haslam's hire. And, he's the owner. It's not like you can fire him or anything. He's not going anywhere. But this is kind of the first big thing I think that's happened with Bill Haslam officially in as owner. And I'm as intrigued by that as anything else to see how that goes and where that goes from here.
Bill Haslam / Nick Saban era. But yes,
sure.
No, I agree. And it was a good day yesterday for Bill Haslam and for people who like professional sports owners who are willing to sit down and answer questions and talk to their fans. That's probably a pretty good idea.
Well, and I hope that becomes a more regular thing. Like that's the first time he's really done that. Now he was up there for the Saban press conference, but all the questions basically went to Saban.
Are you going to listen to me? Or are you going to listen to these guys?
Well, that's a good point. I'm hoping that this is something that happens a little bit more regular. Like when they hire the next general manager, of course I want to hear from the next general manager. I also want to hear from him, right?
Yeah.
So I hope that's a thing moving forward.
For sure. One vote here for half of each. Barrett Troyal. Gopher brings us a good point. What about Pete and Terry? Pete and Terry sharing one spot on the Mount
They get their
Rushmore?
own. They get their own.
They get their own. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I had to deal with both of them knuckleheads yesterday too. You gotta watch out for those guys.
I tell you what, man.
Behind me in the press conference, there's Crispy's like grabbing my shoulder and I'm in the middle of
throwing stuff at your head.
Yeah. That does it for us today. Appreciate everybody's participation today. We'll have you covered all day long here on 102.5 The Game. Next Man Up with Jake Lyman is coming up next. We'll see you tomorrow.